The wedding cake trembled slightly as Margaret Whitfield's voice rose above the string quartet, the champagne bubbles, and the carefully curated elegance of $300,000 worth of celebration. Let's be honest about what she is. She didn't turn to face me. She spoke to the cluster of Whitfield family members arranged around her like a court, cousins, aunts, her sister Patricia, who always laughed at Margaret's jokes precisely 2 seconds after everyone else. Daniel married a girl from a trailer park. We dressed her up. We gave her a ring. We gave her our name. She paused for effect, the way people do when they have rehearsed their cruelty. But you cannot polish trailer trash and call it something else. 112 people heard her say it. I know because I counted them later. The way you count things when your mind needs an anchor, while your body is deciding whether to stay standing. My new husband Daniel stood 6 feet away, his champagne glass motionless in his hand, his face doing something complicated that I did not have the emotional bandwidth to interpret in that moment. His father, Robert, looked at the floor. The string quartet, bless them, kept playing. My name is Cassie Monroe. I am 31 years old, and this is the story of the night my mother-in-law tried to remind everyone in that ballroom exactly where I came from and discovered, too late, exactly where I had arrived. I grew up in Hatcher County, Tennessee. Specifically, in a double-wide on a half-acre lot off Route 9 that my mother kept immaculately clean, despite the fact that the window in the back bedroom never fully sealed and the heating unit needed replacing approximately every 18 months. My mother was a practical woman. She did not waste energy on shame about things that could not be immediately changed. She spent that energy on other things, on making sure I did my homework at the kitchen table every night, on driving 40 minutes each way to get me to the regional library on Saturdays, on telling me with a consistency that I did not fully appreciate until I was much older that the circumstances of your beginning are not the architecture of your life. She was right. She was also the kind of woman that Margaret Whitfield would have looked through on the street without registering as a full person. That distinction matters to this story. I had met Daniel Whitfield 3 years earlier at a real estate investment conference in Nashville, which tells you something about how the trajectories of our respective lives had bent by that point. He was there representing his family's commercial property holdings in a junior capacity, learning the business that would eventually be his to run. I was there as the founder and majority owner of Monroe Property Group, a boutique real estate development firm I had built over 7 years from the ground up. Beginning with a single distressed residential property I had purchased at 22, with money I had saved working double shifts at a hotel while taking online finance courses at night. I was not, by the time I met Daniel Whitfield, struggling. I was not, by any reasonable metric, what his mother's imagination had filed me under. But Margaret Whitfield had done her research in the particular way that people do when they have already decided what they will find, which is to say, she had found what she was looking for. She had found Hatcher County. She had found Route 9. She had found the double-wide and the single mother and the regional library 40 minutes away. She had not found the rest, or rather, she had found it and chosen to consider it insufficient. Money doesn't change what something is at its core, she had told Daniel, 3 months into our relationship, in a conversation he had recounted to me with the uncomfortable honesty of a man trying to be fair to 2 people who were heading toward a collision. It just buys a better costume. I had listened to him tell me this and felt the familiar cold clarity that I always felt when someone underestimated me in a way that was going to cost them. I said nothing. I kept building. The wedding venue had been Margaret's choice. Whitfield events were always held at Ashford Estate, a privately owned historic property 40 minutes outside Nashville that hosted approximately 30 high-end events per year, and had been, for the Whitfield family, the backdrop of every significant celebration for 2 decades. I had agreed to Ashford Estate without comment. I had not mentioned that I knew the property well. I had not mentioned that 8 months earlier quietly and through the holding company that managed my acquisitions. I had purchased a 49% stake in Ashford Estate from the previous co-owner, a transaction that had been handled with the discretion that I had learned over 7 years of building to insist upon. I had not mentioned any of this because it had not been relevant. Until Margaret Whitfield stood in the middle of my wedding reception and told 112 people that I was trailer trash in a costume. Then it became very relevant. The moment after she finished speaking had a particular quality that I have tried to describe to people since and have never quite gotten right. It was not silence exactly. The string quartet continued. Someone near the back of the room coughed softly. A waiter passed with a tray of champagne flutes, realized the temperature of the room, and withdrew. It was the specific stillness of people who have just witnessed something they cannot unhear and are waiting to understand what it means. Daniel took a step toward his mother. I put my hand on his arm. "It's all right," I said quietly. And I meant it, not in the way of someone performing graciousness, but in the way of someone who can see exactly how the next 60 seconds are going to unfold and is completely at peace with it. He looked at me. Something in my expression stopped him. He stayed where he was. I turned toward Margaret. She was watching me with the expression she always wore when she was waiting for me to be embarrassed, a composed, expectant look, like a woman who has set a trap and is simply waiting for the mechanism to engage. I looked at her for a long moment without speaking. Then footsteps crossed the ballroom floor. Measured footsteps. Unhurried. A man in a dark suit approached from the direction of the estate's main office corridor. 60 years old approximately, silver-haired, carrying himself with the quiet authority of someone who owns the room he is walking through, which, in this case, was literally accurate. His name was James Hartley. He was the majority owner and managing director of Ashford Estate. He was also, since our transaction 8 months ago, my business partner. He stopped beside me. He extended his hand. "Mrs. Whitfield," he said, and the name landed with a slight weight because it was my name now, freshly acquired, still warm. "I wanted to personally welcome you and congratulate you on your wedding. It is an honor to have you celebrate here." He said it to me, not to Margaret, to me. Margaret's composed expression developed a small fracture. "James," I said warmly, shaking his hand, "thank you. Everything has been absolutely beautiful." "Nothing less for a co-owner," he said, pleasantly, conversationally, as though this were simply a normal exchange between two people whose relationship was known to everyone in the room. It was not known to everyone in the room. It was not known to Margaret Whitfield. He turned to the assembled guests with the practiced ease of a man who has hosted 1,000 events and knows how a room works. "For those I haven't met, James Hartley, managing director of Ashford Estate. My business partner here," he gestured toward me, "has been instrumental in our expansion plans for the coming year. We're very grateful to have her involved with this property." He excused himself. He walked back toward the office corridor. The string quartet continued to play. And Margaret Whitfield stood in the middle of the ballroom. She had chosen to humiliate me in and understood, with a slowness that was almost painful to observe, that the property she had used as a stage for 30 years of family celebrations had, 8 months ago, become partially mine. The person who broke the silence was Patricia, Margaret's sister, who always laughed 2 seconds after everyone else. She did not laugh. "Margaret," she said carefully, "did you know?" Margaret said nothing. Robert, Daniel's father, had raised his eyes from the floor. He was looking at me with an expression I had not seen from him before, not the polite, apologetic tolerance he usually offered as a counterbalance to his wife's sharpness, but something more attentive, more recalibrating. Daniel was looking at me too. And his expression was the one I cared about, surprised, yes, but beneath the surprise was something warm and wondering and not entirely shocked. He knew who I was. He had always known. He just hadn't known about Ashford. Later that night in the car, he would say to me, "How long?" 8 months, I would say, "and you didn't tell me." I was going to. Then your mother started the trailer trash comments at Christmas, and I thought I'll just let it sit. Let it be there if it's ever needed. A pause. "That's either the most patient thing I've ever heard," he said, or the most terrifying? Probably both, I said. He laughed. The real kind. Margaret approached me 40 minutes later. The reception had resumed its rhythm, imperfectly, with the particular self-consciousness of people who have witnessed something they are still processing. But champagne had been refilled, the dance floor had opened, and the natural momentum of celebration had begun, slowly, to reassert itself. She found me near the window that overlooked the estate's formal garden, lit at night with a warm amber glow that I had, in fact, suggested to James during one of our planning conversations, because I thought it was beautiful and I was, after all, a co-owner. Cassie. She said my name differently than she usually said it, without the faint inflection of sufferance. I turned. She looked, for the first time since I had known her, smaller than her clothing. The architecture of her authority, the posture, the practiced expression, the management of every room she entered was still structurally present but somehow diminished, like a building with the power off. I didn't know, she said. I know you didn't, I said. That's not, she stopped, restarted. I want to explain what I said. You don't need to explain it, I said. I understood it perfectly. You looked at where I came from and decided it defined what I was. You're not the first person to do that. You won't be the last. That's not Margaret. My voice was gentle, not cold, not performative, just steady. I grew up in a trailer in Hatcher County. That is true. My mother worked 2 jobs to make sure I had what I needed. That is also true. And I built a company from nothing over 7 years, and I own pieces of several properties including this one, and I married your son because I love him, not your family's name, not your social standing, not your approval. I paused. That is all true at the same time. None of it cancels any other part. She was quiet for a long moment. I misjudged you, she said finally. You misjudged what I came from, I said. That's a different thing, and honestly, it's the more important mistake. She looked at me with something that was not yet respect, but was perhaps the beginning of its possibility. My mother, I continued, cleaned offices her whole life. She drove 40 minutes each way to get me to a library on Saturdays. She told me every single day that where you start is not where you have to finish. I held Margaret's gaze. She was the least trashy person I have ever known. And if the word I came from insults her, then I will spend every day making sure the word means something different. Margaret said nothing for a long moment. Then she said, very quietly, She sounds formidable. She's the reason I am, I said. We are not close. Margaret and I will not dress that in false warmth. The relationship is what it is, careful, improved, permanently marked by what was said in a ballroom in front of 112 people. Trust, once fractured in that particular way, does not simply heal. It forms scar tissue. It becomes something that functions differently than it did before. But she stopped. She stopped the comments, the implications, the carefully aimed silences. Whether from genuine reconsideration or pragmatic recalibration, I cannot fully know. I choose to believe it is some of both. Daniel is the same person he was the night I met him, curious, kind, occasionally infuriating in the particular ways that people who love each other are infuriating to one another. He tells people the Ashford story sometimes, at dinner parties, with a pride that is entirely genuine and a slight bewilderment that still hasn't fully resolved. She just sat on it, he always says. For 8 months, didn't say a word. I was waiting, I always say. For what? I always smile. For her to make it necessary. My mother came to the wedding. She wore a dress she had bought at a department store and had altered by a woman in her neighborhood who did excellent work. She sat in the 3rd row. She cried when I walked down the aisle, not the decorative crying of people performing emotion, but the real kind, the kind that comes from a long way back. After the reception, when most guests had filtered out and the estate staff were beginning the quiet work of closing down the evening, I found her sitting on a bench in the garden beneath the amber lights. I sat beside her. She looked at the garden for a while. This is a beautiful place, she said. I own part of it, I said. She turned to look at me. And then she laughed, a full, unguarded laugh that I had been hearing my whole life. in a kitchen in Hatcher County with the back bedroom window that never fully sealed. "Of course you do," she said. She took my hand. The amber lights held us both. And somewhere inside the building behind us, the string quartet played its last song of the evening, something slow and warm that drifted out through the open doors and across the garden and dissolved into the Tennessee night. I had come from Route 9. I had arrived here. Both things were true. Both things I had decided a long time ago were mine. Before you leave, if this story resonated with you, subscribe, hit like button, and share with others.